Very well, we're ready.
All right, we're ready. Can I continue?
No, the student is going to introduce you now.
Okay, the student. All right. So I'm still waiting. All right.
Yes.
Welcome everyone to the second talk of today's day in STEM week. To the people who join us in Zoom, we kindly ask you to write your questions down in the chat so that the speaker can answer them in the corresponding section of the talk. We kindly ask you, the people present in here, to put your mobile device on silent for the duration of the conference. Thank you very much and welcome. Cristoph currently works for MSD in the Medical Affairs Department as a hybrid medical science liaison manager oncology. Before, he was assigned medical advisor for gastrointestinal and lung cancer, as well as a field project manager for companion diagnostics. Before joining MSD, Christopher held the position of key account manager oncologist at Merck KGaA, being responsible for the commercialization of the company's top oncology drug. His academic career comprises a Master in Science in Biotechnology from the University of Glasgow and a Bachelor in Science in Biosystems Technology and Bioinformatics from TH Wilder. In parallel, he specialized in research on next-generation sequencing, which led to several publications, invitation talks at international conferences, as well as different projects with multiple stakeholders, including the European Commission, the United States Pharmacopeia, MIT, and Samsung Medical Center Korea. Please welcome him with a round of applause.
Thank you very much. I can hear the applause. I can't see it, but I guess there are a lot of people. So many thanks, Javier, for this kind introduction. And I also just want to say buenos dias, respectively, good evening, greetings from Germany to Mexico. I really appreciate being here in front of, I guess, so many interested students, and thus I just want to thank Javier for the organization of this talk, and most of all, for my former classmate and friend, Barbara Gonzalez. She's also here, I can see her, for inviting me and for realizing this opportunity. I was asked to provide a short overview about how it is to work in a pharmaceutical company, which I will do hereby via the following agenda, which you can see here right now. So I've structured the talk into several topics. I will just start at first, again, my path from academia to pharma, just to visualize a little bit my different steps, my different stations, based on the introduction you already gave. Then I will go into detail what STEM means in pharma, and you will see that STEM subjects plays a pivotal role in the pharmaceutical industry. From that, I will go along to the different departments and specializations you can find in the pharmaceutical industry. And finally, after that, I will shine light on how to get into pharma, so the application process, questions, what you can be asked, and share my experience I've made with that. And then at the end, that you have a better imagination about how it is to work in pharma. I will just try to present you, let's say, a visualistic way how it is to work a regular day in medical affairs, so the department I reside in. And last but not least, I will present some data, facts, and specifications about MSD as a global pharmaceutical company, where I'm in since almost 7 years right now. So just shortly, before dipping into the pharma space, I just wanted to give a brief overview of who I am and where I come from. So also just based on the introduction which Javier gave. So actually born in Berlin in 1990, finished 2010 my high school diploma, and after a short stop in the German army, I finished my biosystems technology and bioinformatics undergrads in 2014. I've continued then at the University of Glasgow together with Barbara Gonzalez in the Master of Science course in biotechnology. And soon after, I've just jumped into the pharmaceutical industry, at first in the commercial space as a key account manager for oncology for the German Merck KGaA. And because this was related, so for a collaboration product, I've also had responsibility for a product from Pfizer, so commercial responsibility. I've just spent short time there at Merck, and then I went in 2018 to MSD, firstly as a field project manager oncology for companion diagnostics, so being responsible for all precision oncology approaches. Soon after, I got an assigned medical advisor for gastrointestinal and lung cancers at MSD. And since 3 years almost, I'm now in the position of a hybrid MSL and a medical advisor in MSD for all pan-tumor, so cross-entity, pipeline and biomarker, respectively, precision oncology approaches. And there's still a next step going on. Just recently, I took over an assignment in the EMEAC regional pipeline core team, so being responsible for pipeline assets in the EMEAC region, which means Europe, Canada, Africa, and the Middle East. And maybe you miss here, maybe one point, a PhD. Actually wanted to do a PhD right after studies, but then I just jumped into so fast, and so I had no possibility to carry out this project, but it's on hold, it's not cancelled, and maybe I will do it next to the job. I will try it next to the job in the meantime, because I'm still interested heavily in research. What is demonstrated by the different projects I've carried out during my studies, after my studies, next to my studies. And you can also already see a lot of STEM associated projects here. So for example, let's take engineering. ISO is probably a name for every prospective engineer here in this audience, as well as the DIN, which is the German analogous committee for setting up standards, the European Commission, the MIT, obviously, and also other projects which are listed here. So, but yeah, this is the STEM week. I wanted to get into detail what STEM for pharma means in this way. And this is presented here on the next slide. First of all, before we start, I just wanted to highlight and to acknowledge that all of you have chosen the right subject to study, being in this STEM space, no matter if it's science or technology or maths or engineering. So especially the pharmaceutical, but also a lot of different other companies, they have a need and they are seeking highly motivated and talented people from all areas, because you are the subject matter experts in the future. So keep carrying on the studies, especially in the pharma. There are different departments which are important, and in the STEM context, you can see here different embedded departments regarding to STEM. So we have multiple business units, as well as large pharmaceutical large departments in the pharmaceutical companies. For example, let's start with S for science. We have the medical affairs, clinical development, commercial operations, and also the standard work in wet and dry laboratories. And science is actually the soul of the pharma, because it deals with the development of new and innovative products to increase the health of people around the globe. The second one, technology, which actually means new tools and demands in a world which becomes much more and more complex, is also addressed by the pharmaceutical industry. For example, in the manufacturing space, so being responsible or working on the plants, but also digital and data, which is a huge topic nowadays, because more and more data gets generated, need to be annotated, need to get the right ontology. And even with the occurring field of AI, the pharmaceutical industry is also interested in this space, and even developed kind of own AI algorithms. So for engineering, typically, those are the manufacturing departments, so working on a plant, in a factory, producing the products, actually, which are developed. With that also associated quality management and quality assurance, typical and really important aspects in this manufacturing sites. But not only in the manufacturing, also IT engineers are employed by the pharmaceutical industry, which is associated with a term I've mentioned before, the ever-increasing space of digital and data. And finally, maths, also a very important point within the STEM space. Actually, maths designs all of our studies. So drafting and developing clinical studies is pure maths, or better said, pure statistics. So the design of study, the studies, the number of participants which have to be enrolled into a study to achieve at the end the statistical significance is important. The determination of statistical power of clinical study endpoints to show at the end a statistically significant benefit when you compare the interventional treatment against the standard of care or placebo. So there are a lot of mathematicians, a lot of statisticians, and therefore we also have several departments, especially in clinical development, when we draft and write the protocols for the clinical studies. We have a biostatistics department, but also in the epidemiology department, statistics and math plays a role. So, and to get a little bit more into detail into these departments, let's take a look of certain departments which also have been on my road in my past, what I got to know, but just as a warning, it's not intended to be complete. There's so many departments and functions and specializations in the pharmaceutical industry that I can't highlight all of them. So I took just some big departments and also where I can share some experiences with you. So let's start at first with commercial sales. Just shortly, what's the high-level rationale of this department, commercial and sales? As a commercial sales representative, you are responsible for convincing actually the customers, namely the physicians, to prescribe the company products to increase at the end the market share and the revenue, and to make it accessible to the patients who need the products. What are the skills which are required for a commercial or sales position? One skill is flexibility, because you have to you have to work fully remote, so you have not an office-based job. You're usually going around a lot, visiting the customers, having talks with the customers, being on congresses. That's why you have to have this high flexibility, because you're going around a lot. With that associated, because of this customer-facing character, you have to good networking skills. So you have to build up and increase and maintain the network you get with the physicians and the customers. Therefore, also associated with this, you have to have good area management skills. So you have to have an overview of your responsible area, where are the hospitals, where are the practitioners, and so on. And you have to actually calculate and prepare the most efficient route for the day when you go in the field. And finally, but this is a skill which is actually in every department, in every company, in academia and industry, the most vital one is you have to have teamworking skills, because you never work alone. You always work together with colleagues, with managers, or employees if you're on a higher position. And that's also a good point for the next one. So which positions and functions are typically in commercial, respectively sales? So basically the sales representative, that's the one who is going in a fully remote manner in the field, talking with the physicians and try to convince them to prescribe the drugs based on the study data what they present. The next level is the regional sales manager. So that's the one who has the responsibility for the market share and revenue in a designated region, where they have several sales rep reporting to the regional sales manager. And then you have finally the sales director, who is actually the manager of all regional sales managers, or who manages the commercial operations within the entire country. One important restriction in this commercial and sales part is that you're only allowed to talk about in-label products. So strictly in-label communication is required. You're not allowed to talk about off-label indications. What does it mean? In-label means we have approved products. So only where there is an EMA or an FDA approval, where there is a marketing authorization, then you can speak with physicians in a commercial space about a product or an indication. You're not allowed to talk about, let's say, for example, studies, ongoing studies, or preliminary results where there is no approval behind. And here on the right, that's just a typical image how it could look like. You can see on the right side the sales rep talking with a physician and presenting the most recent approval based on the study dates. Yeah, and also discuss and try to convince them. The next step would be marketing. Marketing is also closely associated with sales, so it's also a commercial area and commercial function. Here's the high-level rationale that you are responsible for translating the study results, which are generated by the clinical trial organization, into certain marketing strategies and also actions and campaigns. And for that, you need, as marketing says, creativity. So you have to think about creative ways of how to market the products, how to set the study results into a context, how to make it visible across a broad region, across a broad network. So creativity is a vital point here in this space. And also, again, the teamwork, because here you also have to work with a lot of different colleagues. What are possible positions and functions in the area of marketing? You have brand and customer managers who are actually designing material, also together with agencies, which are then rolled out for the sales reps, that they are able to present it to their customers. You have also project managers who are organizing congresses, these congress booths. They also always have a certain design from the companies, some eye catchers. This is also all in the responsibility of the marketing department. And you have the franchise directors, so the ones who are responsible for an entire unit within the marketing organization, for example, one certain drug or one certain cancer entity, for example. But here the same restriction accounts as for the sales reps. It's strictly in-label communication. So also marketing is not allowed to set up any strategies or actions or campaigns with off-label products, so products or studies which are still not approved. The last point actually is possible to discuss in medical affairs, and that's the part where I reside right now. So medical affairs, the high-level rationale is being responsible for discussing the study results which are generated during clinical studies with the physicians you're responsible for, and gaining scientific insights from the physicians. So, which means if there's a congress and a new data readout took place during the congress, where new data were generated for a certain study, for a certain drug compared to a comparator drug, then the medical affairs employees is responsible for going out to their customers, to the physicians, discuss those results, and try to get an overall picture. What role does it play in the therapy landscape, and what else needs to be done, maybe in order to increase the study population, or just if there is still a part or a role for this medication in the existing therapy landscape. For that function, there's also the need for flexibility, because you have partly remote work. So you often sit at home at the laptop preparing presentations and PowerPoint for the physicians, but you're also often on the way nationally, internationally, on congresses and on physicians' visits to discuss the results we daily generate. So therefore, you also need area management, like the sales reps. You have to have a good overview of the area you are responsible for. And also one of the most important point, scientific excellence. So you have to deep dive into the study. You have to understand all the endpoints, all the criteria in order to make a proper conversation and a proper discussion with the physicians who are interested in those studies or even who are conducting those studies. What are the positions and functions you can have in medical affairs? You can be a medical science liaison manager. Those are the ones who are going outside, visiting the physicians, discussing the study results. Then you have the position of a medical advisor. Let's say an in-house medical science liaison manager with additional functions, but not mainly responsible for visiting physicians. And then you have a medical affairs director, so the one who manages the entire medical affairs organization or a specific part or department of a medical affairs organization. What is the restriction here in medical affairs? The restriction here is that in contrast to sales and marketing, medical affairs is not obliged to do any sales or marketing communications. So it's not allowed to try to sell via communication any product. The best way is you have to have neutral discussions. Don't prefer any product. Just put the data you have in a neutral context and a neutral environment. Yeah, and there are many other departments within the pharmaceutical industry, which I just wanted to drop here. I've already put it in brackets here both. They are not intended to be complete because there's so many. I don't have an overview about it, but some departments what you also regarding teamwork collaborate with in these functions. So in sales, marketing, and medical affairs are, for example, the clinical development organization or the CRO, so the clinical research organization. Maybe you've already heard about so CROs. Those are also private companies who employs CRAs, the clinical research associates, who are visiting the study centers where studies are conducted and performed and monitor the protocol adherency and any adverse events which occurs during the clinical studies, which just they are just ensuring that the clinical studies runs according to the protocol and runs smooth. And the clinical development, those are mostly physicians within the pharmaceutical industry. They are responsible for actually designing the clinical studies for the management and the monitoring of the clinical studies. So finally, drafting the protocols, which are then rolled out by the CRO to the certain study centers who are interested. Then you have a different department called MAX, so Market Access or HTA. It's called Health Technology Assessment. You have regulatory affairs and also governmental affairs. Those departments are all responsible for policy tasks, for reimbursement topics. Once a product gets approved, you have to negotiate a price. That's the topic where market access is responsible for. But also the work together with politicians, which is also usual in every country, is carried out by governmental affairs in order to discuss the needs of the industry itself as a whole within, for example, the legal space. Then what I've also already mentioned is the strategy department or other word for it, business development, digital and data. They're responsible for merger and acquisition transactions for all the IT infrastructure and also for new tools which are coming up. So for example, customer relationship management tools and so on. And the database monitoring, because you can imagine that also in the pharmaceutical industry during your contacts with physicians, that a lot of data gets generated, also the data from clinical studies, and those departments are responsible for getting an overview of it, for monitoring it, for annotating it, and for letting it running it smooth. And especially the merger and acquisition or the strategy department is important in this topic, because maybe, you know, running a clinical study is not a small thing. A large phase 3 study carried out by the pharmaceutical industry takes around like 10 to 20 years, so a long time until you have the readouts. Costs billions of dollars, so not millions, even billions, and has a probability of a high failure rate. So only when you have like 10 assets which are investigated in a clinical study, only one asset get it at the end to the market. The other 9 assets failed during their studies because they wasn't able to show any benefit or had too many side effects or whatever. And that's why, because as you also know, everything is getting more and more expensive everywhere in the world. The pharmaceutical industry is focusing on mergers, acquisitions, and also collaborations. So, for example, acquiring smaller startup companies who already have an innovative product or idea, but don't have the capacities to run large clinical studies with it, or collaborations with other pharmaceutical big players to co-commercialize and co-develop a product where you have then at the end, obviously also a share of the revenue with the other company you collaborate with. And at the end, you also have the manufacturing. So all the plants who are located everywhere around in the world, where the antibodies, the small molecules, the vaccines are actually produced under high quality circumstances. And here on the right, there are also some example pictures how it can look. So, for example, clinical development is actually a pure lab work, and also a lot of bioinformatics. So this is where still research, intensive research takes place. And here on the bottom right, you can see it's just an example picture of a manufacturing facility. You can see everything sterile, which is really important in matter of quality aspects, and also large scale productions, which are carried out there. So yeah, now you might think that those were interesting departments, and maybe there's even a position you would like to get into, or what you find interesting. And now I wanted to give you some hints about the application process and procedures. But one warning before, the information which I show you right now, they are based on my experience from 7 years ago. That means it might have changed in the meantime, and maybe differs from company to company, obviously, and also from position to position. But anyway, I think some key elements are still valid, and if you strive towards in a placement in the pharmaceutical industry, then I think this could help you. So that's why I also put it into brackets, a possible way into pharma. So first and foremost, the most important one, eagerness and motivation. So you have to be motivated about your desire. If you want to go into this industry, make yourself clear why you want a certain position in a certain department, in a certain company, and balance the pros and cons for yourself. So for example, what I said, the flexibility issue, you have to travel a lot. This depends from position to position. Then when you read a certain job ad, what attracted your attention and you're interested, study extensively the job description and also the associated company, respectively their product portfolio, in order to gain as much background information as possible. Then you get into the application, actually. And here for the application letter, a standard document, the golden rule, which I'm always repeating, you will see it also in the next slide, as much as necessary, but as least as possible. So don't put too much into it, focus on that, what matters, and also think about the right introduction. So nothing like, hereby I want to apply. If an HR manager reads this, gets already bored because that's the standard introduction for probably 80% of the applications they receive. Try better something like an intro, like already during my early years in school, I was fascinated by biology and how things work, and that's why this position gained by attraction or whatever, something in this. So some catchy intro is required. Then, yeah, the CV also very important. Here, the same golden rule applies as for the application letter, as much as necessary, as least as possible. I think least of the HR managers want to have a CV with like 4 or 5 pages long, which is incredible, but not necessary, because you always have to take into consideration that they receive dozens of applications and need to read through all of them. So again, here focus on what matters. So highlight accomplishments and experiences which are relevant for this position you are striving to. Then references are important. So if you have done so far, or at latest you will do it during your PhD position, PhD. Great when you want to carry this out. You can add on publications, so peer-reviewed paper or original research papers. You can add reference letters from your mentors or whoever. And also the transcripts and certificates are important. So also the marks you get during your studies, they're a vital point. So study good, study hard, that you also have a good exam at the end, what they're also looking on it. And then what is a nice plus also, when you have, or when you can show already suitable internships or working student experience. So this is really valuable if you have the opportunity to do an internship already in a pharma company during your studies, for example, or in the summer break or whatever. This is always seen positive. Or what I can say from Germany, in MSD, we have a lot of working students. So those are actually paid students who work next to their studies, actually like only like 5 or 10 hours per week. So it's a job, a little job next to their study program they run. But if they want to, they have really good chances at the end of their studies to get a permanent contract. So this is also a really good idea. And I know also those working student ships, they are also regularly in job ads from large pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, and if your application is then successful, the next step would be the interview process, obviously, which I will describe on the next slide. Also here, not intended to be complete, can be, this is just one possible way how a hiring process could work. So all of these parts, what you can see here, they could be left out. Additional parts could be get into, or all parts might be interchangeable. So there's not a strict rule how the interview process is going along from the initial phone call until you receive the contract. Some interview processes are long, some are short, but those are just some elements which are mostly part of it. So at first, if your application was successful, you get an initial phone call from human resources, so from one or two recruiters of the company, and or immediately the hiring manager, so the one who is searching for the position you've applied for. And then you get on the phone or doing an online meeting, general questions about your person, your skill, your experience, and also the contents of your application letter and your CV. And they obviously also want to know why you've applied for this position, what fascinates you at this position or at this product or at our company. Then, if this was a successful step, then you most probably will have a live, in brackets live. Nowadays, after Corona, we make everything virtually, but there are still also live meetings taking place. So with the hiring manager, the one who placed this job at and who's searching for a certain position, where they will further deep dive or will give you further deep dive questions, like why this certain position, what aspects is most interesting for you, and have you already got experience in the pharmaceutical industry? If yes, which products? How do you approach this and that? So just a little bit, not like a general interview as the initial phone call. It's more than a specific and focused interview. And there's also the possibility to get homeworks for a second meeting. This was also the case for myself when I jumped into Merck at the beginning. And those homeworks can be like case studies. You have to carry out some case study. You have mostly to prepare a PowerPoint presentation, or you have to summarize a scientific paper, for example, a paper from a study of this company, a pivotal phase 3 study, for example. Or you have to make a hypothesis or an approach how would you increase the sales of a certain region. This would be also one example. And yeah, after presenting these homeworks, you will sometimes have follow-ups, either further interviews with the higher management or your prospective future colleagues, or an assessment center, which is also an usual way to find the right candidates in the space. And let's say, to put it more into context, you have a long and a short version, what I've mentioned at the beginning. Let's say the short version would be you have an initial phone call with HR, which takes like half an hour to 1 hour. Just discuss with them in general. Then you have a meeting with your hiring manager, also 1 hour, or maybe up to 2 hours, and then you get a contract. That's the short version. The long version, what I've also experienced, was a 5-step approach. So starting with the initial phone call, then a meeting with a hiring manager, a second meeting with a hiring manager. Then I had to upload a video of myself answering questions, specific questions regarding the studies or the positions, both in German and in English. And then the 5th one was an assessment center, which took 8 hours, together with 11 other applicants. So you can have this and that, but it depends, as I said, it depends on the company, on the position, and obviously also on the hiring managers. But some golden rules, which I would just like to give you also here, what is also always important, when you have your interview, no matter with HR or with your hiring manager, ask questions about the company itself, the products which they commercialize or which they investigate, their marketing strategy, the competitive environment, so which other pharma players are on the field going around, and the role itself, actually. So you can't read all information from the job ad regarding the role. That's not possible. So think about further deep dive questions, what you would like to know about the role. Ultimately, it has the aim that you show your interest in the position. Then also one really important aspect, put the above mentioned questions, what I said here about company products, etc., at the beginning when you have your meeting. And all other questions regarding like administrative stuff, so contractual terms, like number of holidays, your annual salary, all this stuff, this at the end. Those are important questions, obviously, because you want to work. So also you want to earn money. But put this not at the beginning. This is a wrong signal, let's say. And then, yeah, just the regular skills, which accounts also for the daily life. Be on time, don't come too late, be accordingly dressed. And by the way, the dress code in the pharmaceutical industry decreased over the time after Corona. At the beginning, you had to wear complete stuff with a shirt, with suit, even with a tie. Nowadays, it's more like business casual. That's fine. but not with the jogging pants. I mean, that's clear. Yeah, and the most important one, be prepared for the interview with all those stuff which I've mentioned before. You have to be an expert in this position. You have to know what you want to have and why you want to have this position. Yeah, and if everything works out, then you can grab the stars. You get a contract from the company, and also obviously the benefits. And also the benefits, they differentiate from company to company. I mean, you get this annual salary. Several companies pay the 13th salary, so 13th month salary. You have, dependent on the position, a company car. You have annual bonuses. You have stock options, additional leisure days, also like corporate benefits, discounts for some stuff. So that's a really good package what the pharmaceutical industry offers. And yeah, and once you have the contract, let's take it this now hypothetically, then you start working soon. And how this working can look like, I want to present you just in a regular working day in medical affairs. So what I'm doing right now, this has so many facets that it's impossible to describe a day. But I tried to just highlight some aspects that you can imagine a little bit how it works. So let's say a regular day, and it's in brackets. It's in brackets because there's actually no regular day in medical affairs, but also in marketing or in commercial stuff. When you're active in the field, every day is different. But let's say just pragmatic way is getting up at 7, sitting at the laptop at 9 a.m. First, you're answering, writing emails, so both externally to customers, to physicians, but also internally with colleagues, etc. Then you often have to attend meetings, both with different colleagues, different departments, also sometimes different countries, depends on the position you belong to, and also obviously meetings with customers. Then let's say the next hit point on the list would be to read through the recent study results, which might be published, also the intelligence reports, so what is happening in general in the pharmaceutical field, in the pharmaceutical environment, what is happening with the competitors, which studies are running by competitors, how this could influence our studies or the recruiting of patients for studies, and so on. And also publications, scientific publications, of course. Then based on the information you've got there, you have to prepare PowerPoint slides for the next external, internal appointments. Then after that, get into a car, your train or plane to get to your next external appointment, where you have then a call or this appointment with a physician where you discuss the study results you've just researched right now or before in the noon during the day. And then you gather insights. You get the insights on the point of view of the physician about the study results or the general environment, which then you have to mention it to the global organization, or we also have to create follow-up actions. So after that, you have to recap the context of the appointment and also report the key aspects or the key contents of this meeting to your manager and also to colleagues, both globally and nationally. And then at the evening, then you have to arrange travels and prepare for attending a congress, for example, next day. And yeah, congresses are often both nationally and internationally. So for example, traveling in Germany a lot, but also across Europe, but also internationally. So next month, for example, I'm in San Diego in California on a congress in April. Last year I've been in Florida for Congress, the year before in Korea. So that's what you have to deal with it. You're traveling actually a lot. Yeah. And just to get an overview, because this I just want to highlight this again. There is no regular day. You have like weeks which are looking like this, and which means no regular day and highly dynamic and flexible working hours. Means also that you have to work sometimes at the weekend, but no worries, you get leisure days for it if you have to work on a Saturday or Sunday. So you have weeks like that, fully packed with appointments, but you also have weeks like that. And nobody says anything. For example, if you have a day like this, if you want to sleep longer and get up at 10 or 11, nobody cares. You're more like an entrepreneur, so you have to organize yourself. You have to carry out and perform the projects you are responsible for, but how you allocate your time for it is completely up to you. So, yeah, and with that, I would just shortly come to MSD, some key facts, because that's the company I'm working right now since 6.5 years already. Or no, wait, yeah, 6.5 years, I think. So in different departments with so many colleagues, and that's why I just wanted to also show you some slides about the company itself, because it also has a really nice and interesting history. So actually, MSD, or better said, the sister company Merck Darmstadt, the ones which I've been before, is the oldest pharmaceutical company in the world, founded 1668 as a small pharmacy in the city of Darmstadt, that's close to Frankfurt in Germany. And this was a family, actually. And in 1891, one of the brothers went to New York to found a franchise there. So a franchise of the German Darmstadt Merck in New York, which was then called Merck and Company. But then after World War I, the Americans took over entirely the American branch of the German Merck. And since then, both companies, so Merck Darmstadt and MSD, respectively, Merck and Co., developed separately at completely independent entities. So now they have the same roots in Darmstadt, but are completely independent from each other and are actually competitors also. So, and yeah, 1953, MSD, and I will tell you in a minute why MSD is called MSD and not Merck here, went to New Jersey, where there is now the headquarter of it, the global headquarter. Here you can just see how it's looking like. So MSD is one of the top 5 global pharma companies with almost 96,000 employees worldwide. It's operating in more than 140 countries, as you can see here in the map. And in 2022, the annual revenue have been almost 60 billion US dollars. And one thing which we are really proud of is that almost 1/4 of this annual revenue is reinvested in research. And that's a huge package, which is also not done so often in other companies, for example. So it's a very research-intensive pharmaceutical company since more than 130 years right now. We're developing and producing prescription drugs, vaccines, biologic, but also animal health products. And here's the hint why we are called MSD and not Merck & Co. Because of the same history of Merck Darmstadt and Merck. There are some legal conflicts between both companies regarding the name. And because Merck Darmstadt is older than MSD, founded in 1668, Merck has the right for their name, Merck, in all countries in the world except US and Canada. In US and Canada, Merck Darmstadt is called EMD. And the American Merck & Co. Have only the rights for the name Merck in Canada and US, but nowhere else in the world, because then there we are called MSD, which just means Merck Sharp and Dome. This has just propriety or legal aspects which are taken there into consideration. Yeah, just shortly, We have different business units, so human health and animal health. So that's also interesting. We also have an animal health business, so for domestic animals as well as livestock. Developing antiparasitics, vaccines, etc. But here, interesting now, the human health part, and here in oncology, where I reside, it's a very intensive research based department with a strong pipeline, and we already treated more than 1.3 million patients, cancer patients worldwide in the last year with our drugs. We have also infectious diseases, vaccines, and primary care and immunology. And here just a short info about the highlights during the history in these different departments. We had the first vitamin B1 production in a synthetic way in a primary care setting, the first synthetic cortisone, and the first approval on ACE inhibitor. And also one dark chapter of our history, the approval and market withdrawal of a COX-2 inhibitor. And finally, also a DPP-4 inhibitor for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. So for infectious diseases, we had in 1947 the production of streptomycin for treatment of tuberculosis patients. We had in 1987 the approval of an anti-neoplastic drug, anti-parasitic drug, sorry, the ivermectin, and also an approval for certain antivirus treatments against HIV. And also the vaccine space is really interesting. We had a first combined MMR vaccine, making it available in 1971. First approval of a vaccine against pneumococcal infections, one approval against an HPV vaccine, and also an Ebola vaccine, which was approved in 2019. And yeah, finally, the field of oncology, which is my area. We had temozolomide for treatment of central nervous systems malignancies. So here, glioblastoma. We've developed interferon A for melanoma, but also other solid tumor entities. We also had one really successful antiemetics products. For the chemotherapy-induced nausea, so when they have to puke up, we had this antiemetic developed against this. Also BCG strain for the treatment of certain kinds of urothelial cancer. And one of the biggest drugs, the pembrolizumab, which is a checkpoint inhibitor, so monoclonal antibody, which acts antagonistic against the PD-1, PD-L1 signal axis, which is one point what tumor cells take over to evade the detection by the immune system. So actually with this drug, it's possible to reinduce the immune system to train it on the tumor cells, which was really successful with more than 30 approvals we have right now in multiple indications. Yeah, and the future is bright, especially in oncology. We have a lot of different pathways to trigger, malignancies. They differentiate to normal tissue via several multiple pathways, which leads to proliferation, metastasis, and survival. So different checkpoints and biomarkers have been identified over the years, and also the associated treatments against, which are not all from MSD, they are from multiple companies. But there's still a lot of work going on because cancer is still a deadly disease. It's not in the metastatic setting, it's not curable. And this is also our approach, and also the approach from all other pharmaceutical companies who are active in oncology to change this in the future. Yeah, and with that, I'm hopefully in time. And thank you very much so far for your attention. And muchas gracias. And please feel free to ask any questions you might have.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions that you want to ask, yes.
Hi, I have a question. My name is Susana. My question is that if in the department of NAX HTA, do you have like also a bioethics like department, or is like how it does it manage that part about like clinical research and everything?
You mean, hopefully I understood you correctly. You mean the bioethical aspects regarding clinical study designs, right?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So we also have an ethics department. I'm not sure where it's located, but it's actually plays a pivotal role when designing and conducting studies, because before a study can be set up and enroll patients, you have to have the approval before from the ethics committee. But this is not even covered only in the pharmaceutical companies. There are also external agencies and national ethical committee where all studies are getting to and need to be approved, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, unfortunately, we have to cut the questions short because we're running out of time. But thank you so much for your time and thank you for the amazing conference. And yep, see you next time.
Yes. Okay. You have to go to the next session, right? but thank you very much. I think I've got it. Sound was a little bit stocking, but I think I got it.
Thank you very much. And yeah, we do need to move on to the next one. So one last round of applause for
Thank you very much. Take care and good luck with your continuing studies.
thank you.
Gracias.